guys, welcome back to Fandom Family Chats. I'm your host, Maureen, and tonight we're joined with Tiffany.
Hello.
And Eve. We're a little emotional. And Eve.
Hi.
And Bethany.
Hi.
And tonight we are recapping the only sad, no happy episode of The Resident, episode 3. That's not true. There was some happy in there. But it was mostly horrifically depressing.
Yeah. It was ouch.
So thoughts, guys?
Wow. You know, when I was watching the episode and I was sitting there, I was taking notes and I was like, man, this is the episode. Like, this is the recap episode. We knew it was coming. We didn't want it to come. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's so much to talk about. There's so much to spill out. And I thought, you know what? The instant we start the episode, I have a feeling we're all just going to be sitting here shocked in silence. And it's going to be like, okay, what do we say? What do we do? Because there's just so much emotion to process and unpack and pick through, and ouch.
Yeah, like I don't even know really where to start. I don't think I've ever felt like this on a podcast before. And honestly, like I know we were talking about in the group, like I'm not so sad that Emily Van Camp left the show. I mean, I loved her as Nick, you know, I loved her fine, but
she's with her baby.
Yeah, I know that Emily Van Camp is doing something awesome, and so I'm not sad that she left the show. But Matt Zucker's sad face is just horrible. And everyone, even seeing like Bruce Greenwood, seeing him, oh God, seeing him like tear up, and it was the sadness that everyone else felt that just wrecked me.
Yeah, everyone was just so sad. I was like, there's not a single happy character on this show, and it is depressing.
I think Billy said it best when she said, I want to cry and scream and throw things.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I felt.
Exactly.
Let's all scream and cry and throw things.
And I mean, I was like crying from the jump, just because watching Conrad speed through traffic and almost die as he was speeding through traffic, but then seeing him not even address anyone as he runs in the hospital, and then when he's held back by AJ and Billy, it's just, that was bad enough. So I was already crying from the jump. But then when Corbin Burnson came on,
no,
talking to Conrad in the hallway, like I lost any sense of composure I had at all.
Oh yeah, I lost it. I was like, oh God, he's sad. I'm sad now too.
Oh, that was hard to watch.
I think I was so, I mean, concerned, seeing it from the commercial, knowing that he's going to be there, knowing how his reaction was when Nick was in the hospital from the stabbing. And I knew that was going to just do the episode in. And that was so hard to see it. I mean, just from the get-go, it's hard to watch that, like you were saying, with Conrad rushing at the same time as she was coming in, and it was so significant and so symbolic, because it's like this was the last time they were rushing into something together, like their lives were, they lived, everything they did was together, once they finally got married, and just to see them do life as one. And this is the last time they were going to do that. It just was so significant to see him rushing in. And I think that set the tone for the whole episode.
Yeah.
And then of course, Corbin Burnson just took that to a whole new level. Just really crazy to watch.
So what did you guys think of the entrance to the show, of Conrad's entrance?
My heart was racing, like I was like, oh my God, this is so stressful. And it was like not even 2 seconds in, I was like, I'm so stressed. I know what's going to happen, but I'm feeling really stressed out.
Yeah, felt like that through the whole episode pretty much.
Like we all knew what was happening. We all knew she was going to die. We knew that from before the season started she was going to die, but it still felt like, I don't know, there's an anxiety I felt through everything, even though I knew it was coming. Because I mean, it wasn't uncertain, but it felt almost like uncertain. I don't know how to explain it. I've never had to do one of these podcasts while withholding my tears so hard. Jeanette made me cry last week, because here's the other thing that kills me. That baby when you bring kids into it, I can't do it.
And
he
she's saying, "Mama, Mama."
Oh
over
my
and over
gosh.
again. Like, oh my God, I want to.
Oh, that was horrible.
It's like,
And
oh my God, that poor baby.
you have to imagine it was the heart that was on the helicopter, right? Because those are the quickest that they need to get out. And that's the biggest wait list I imagine for an organ is a heart. And so as heart is leaving the hospital and Gigi saying mama to the heart, like,
I think that was the hardest part for me to watch. Like, I just had to like really cringe. That was it. Like, that was the last drop the mic, walk away, because just seeing that take off and seeing her and knowing what that scene meant, and Conrad is watching her, and in his heart he's saying goodbye. And she's there, the sweet little baby. And then all of a sudden, to close up on the helicopter and just to hear that word, mama, ouch. It just, that was really difficult to see and to hear, that moment, and that was, chances are obviously the baby didn't actually say mama in that moment. That was something that was overlaid. But whoever thought that, okay, when the helicopter's taking off and Conrad and Gigi are watching it, we're going to have her say mama, to put that in was just so attention to detail. And it was just heartbreaking. Just heart-wrenching it's indescribable. I can't find the words.
It was just one gut punch after the other. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so sad. And then 2 seconds later, it's like, oh my God, it comes again.
It got worse. I didn't think it could get worse. It
just kept getting worse.
And the end scene is both, it's bittersweet because there's the obvious sadness that this girl is not going to grow up knowing her mother at all. She'll know what people tell her. She'll know what Conrad, and that Conrad is going to speak in only the highest of glowing angelic terms about Nick her entire life. But she's never going to know her mom. She's never going to experience her mom. And that was heartbreaking. But then when she was calling up that name to the helicopter, then they're also demonstrating that she's not really gone. So it was a really, really smart way, I think, to play that ending. I thought it was really, really smart, really well done. And I like too that first shot we see the helicopter. I like how that was shot, because it was almost like you were standing right next to it and the helicopter zoomed past you, because it got really, the wing, or what is that thing called? The propeller? The blades is what I was thinking of.
It's too bad our viewers can't see us like spinning our fingers around.
It would bring a little comedic relief.
I'm gonna dub over helicopter sound while we're doing that. But it sounded like it was really close to your ear and then sped off, and the shot was really close. And I liked how that was filmed. It was a little fake, but I liked how that was filmed. I thought that was well done too.
It was just very, it's everything was just heightened and intense. And I think it always is. Fox just really goes like a little extra on their shows. Like everything's just very,
except for Robot Baby.
Intense. Oh, Robot Baby. Yeah.
They didn't try
more extra than Robot Baby. But, everything is just heightened. But this episode was even higher than that. Like the emotions, obviously. And I think a lot of that was like real emotions, because Emily Van Camp was leaving the show. And so a lot of it was, hey, there is a loss, there is a change that's happening. But to see that translated, on the screen was incredible. But it everything was just almost immersive is the word I'm looking for.
That's a good word, yeah.
Yeah, it was just very immersive. And I don't know if you guys noticed, and it's probably, on set, her real mother, but the baby, every time they were holding the baby, like she was waving at somebody. And I was like, oh, how cute. And you see a kid, the kid doesn't know she's on camera.
Yeah.
So she's probably waving to her mom behind the scenes or something. But the scene where they were bringing her to Nick, and I don't know if this was on purpose, if somebody just had really clever camera angles, but when Conrad is taking her into his arms and she's waving, the direction that she's waving is towards Nick in the hospital bed in her room. And I was like, if that was on purpose, whoever planned that was a genius. If it was clever editing, or it just was really great coincidence, but it was crazy to see that, and I almost lost it in that scene, when they brought Gigi to Nick and thinking, this is her mom, this is her mommy, and then how Nick would be feeling, she's
Mhm.
not feeling anything, she's not realizing anything, but she's probably thinking, this is my family, of course she wouldn't
Yeah.
want to leave them. And to just see that, like, after all is said and done, like, here is this little baby being brought to her mother under these circumstances. I mean, I had to just kind of like look away
Yeah.
during that scene because it was just very intense. It was very intense. But to
Any
think
scene with Gigi in it was really rough to watch.
Mhm.
yes, you
I
just
think-
kept seeing that.
For me, like when we interview these actors, you hear them talk about how, well, that's a testament to great writing. Well, it is, but the acting
right
makes us empathize with your characters, and the acting and the job that they did, that's the reason we're so sad.
Mhm.
Yeah, the writing was great, they shot it well, but the work that the actors put into their characters is what destroyed us.
It's how they interpret what the
Mhm.
writers give them.
Exactly. And like as a viewer, when I'm watching a show, I'm kind of putting myself in that place a little bit, because that's, well, if it's not a well done show, then I don't do that. But on a well done show, I do that. When the acting is good and the writing is there, I kind of put myself in that spot as they're showing me things. And so anytime at all, there's a parent-child relationship that is being destroyed, it wrecks me. Because all I can think of is, what if that was my kid?
Oh wow.
And I know that when we talked with Corbin, he was talking about that a little bit. And I checked the dates to see if maybe he had filmed that scene already. Because Tiffany, you said something. What did you say when you went back and rewatched his interview?
Every time, good Lord, where's my voice today? Every time he was talking about Emily, he said was instead of
Mm.
is.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So we know that in May-ish or a little before that, she had already told them, she had already contracted out that she was done with her show. But I looked and they didn't start filming yet. So he hadn't filmed that scene yet, because we recorded that in June 23rd. And when we talked to Tasso, he said they started recording in July. So he hadn't recorded the scene yet. But remember when he was talking about how he gave it too much and they were like, hey, pull back, Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
Or not Kyle, Corbin.
They're just trying to cheer us up a little bit.
But that scene where he did it was such a perfect balance of pain and hope and fear, and it was so good. And even Conrad, like in the beginning, when he was like, she's gonna wake up, duh, of course she's gonna wake up, what are you talking about? That was really heartbreaking too, because you could see the way Matt did the way Matt played that out in his character.
Mm.
It was just so all over his face that he didn't believe the words he was saying, but he felt like he had to keep saying it. And I really there was so much nonverbal candy in this episode. It was ridiculous.
Mm.
And
I think so. Like, he needed that filter. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say it was coincidental that the nonverbal candy happened to mainly be on Matt Sucre. Just coincidence.
Yeah. It's when you mentioned that about how it was hard for him to admit it. I mean, obviously you knew it would be hard for him to face it, and he said himself, oh, everybody thinks I'm in denial, but that's not the case. He needed that filter, I think, of telling Nick's dad, like, he couldn't, and that was the only way that he was ever going to vocalize or admit. He knew it all along, but that was like the conduit of, this is how I'm gonna realize and admit and accept reality of where Nick's situation is, and not just keep telling me, oh, she's gonna wake up, she's gonna wake up, she's gonna wake up. Okay, well, now I'm having to tell Nick's father, her parent, this is what's really happening with her.
And he wasn't the one to tell her.
Yeah, no, he wasn't the one to tell her, but he when he told him that he was gonna respect Nick's wishes, he had to admit to himself that, oh, we'll give her a little bit, she'll wake up. He finally had to realize, no, like, this is a situation she said she did not want to be in, and now all I can do is honor her wishes. And
well, I think he came to that before that.
I think so too. I think it just was a nice way for him to vocalize it.
Yeah, that's true.
Because he just, everything he had sold, everybody was, well, she's gonna wake up, even the patient's wife, oh, I wish I could, thank Nick one more time. Oh, you will, he couldn't bring himself to act on it.
And in that scene right there, when he said, you will tell her when she wakes up, like he kind of had a smile on his face when he talked to her, but the moment he looked away from her, it was like depression. And he knew that what he was saying wasn't true. He just couldn't verbalize it. But I think that it was interesting when Kyle came back and he was freaking out that they were pulling her off the vent. And they like, you're pulling the plug, whatever. And he went out. Kyle was like kind of harassing him, and he looked at Conrad to see what was happening, and Conrad just looked at Devon, and then Devon had to tell him because I think Conrad was trying to like prepare himself for what he had to say, and also Devon was the one who just did the test. Yeah, Eve.
Absolutely.
No, just with what Bethany was saying, it's like, Conrad had to go through that process of, right now I'm not the doctor, I'm the husband who has to believe everything's going to be okay. I feel like that kind of, in a sense, put him in a position where he was like, okay, now I can be the doctor and tell, Kyle, sorry, this is what is, and this is what has to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There, you summed that up perfectly.
And it's interesting because the first thing we see him say really is, I'm not her doctor, I'm her husband. That's the first thing he says to Nick when he jumps on the helicopter with her. And then he's like trying to get her to wake up, and he did that sweet little thumb kiss thing to her forehead. Oh, it was sad too. But then he went right from, I'm not her doctor to her husband, to I am in charge of her care, to I'm not going to do nothing, to okay, I'm the husband again. I mean, it's as much as Conrad fights for his people and his patients, that had to be a really, really difficult transition to make. And really, you have to imagine the war that was going on. And obviously, yes, people, I know it's a script, and Matt is not really Conrad, but in the character of
it's real in our hearts.
It's true. In the character of Conrad, you kind of had to imagine the war that was going on between, and I don't think it was a control thing necessarily. I think that he really thought the way that Kyle thought about him. He said, the way she talks about you, you could save anybody. Wow. And I think that because that's the first thing he says to Devon, right? Is I'm looking at this patient Elaine who we fixed her. So if I could just find it, then I can fix her. And so I think that was a struggle. I don't think it was so much a control thing as he saved patients before and he had no choice but to save her. And so that had to be a really, really, and I think that Matt played that war out really well on his facial features.
He did. He absolutely did.
I like too that when they were in the room and they found out that she wasn't coming back from this, and he threw the computer, or he threw something against, well, it wasn't a computer, but
everything off of it.
Neither Billy nor Devon even flinched a millimeter when he threw things against the wall. They're like, yeah, we saw this coming.
Yes.
This was inevitable.
Yes, I think so. I think everybody realized, because they probably felt it themselves, like we're saying earlier, like when she was saying, hey, I just want to throw everything and scream because my best friend shouldn't be in the ICU right now. So they were, it made sense to them. It was just an appropriate reaction for the situation, knowing Conrad, knowing what was happening, I think, it was just so much deeper than that.
And they probably wanted to do the same thing. And they were like, oh, good, someone else did that.
Someone did it.
Yeah. Someone did it. I wanted to do that, but someone else did it. So we're good now.
Absolutely.
Probably a little thought of, Conrad's probably the only one who can get away with doing that right now.
That's true. Yeah.
We did it. We'd have a lot of money to owe the hospital.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's very true. And I think they were also trying to hold it together for him. I think everybody knew. I mean, there was no question, like, when they saw the results, they were looking at the images and they knew, and Conrad knew, even though he couldn't, bring himself to say it. But I think they were trying to be like his foundation, like his safety net. They were trying to like be there for him. That's why even Devon was like, I'm so sorry. What was I thinking? What was I thinking by saying to Conrad, I am so sorry.
I don't think he really thought that.
You don't think so?
Mm-mm.
He was apologizing. I thought maybe that's what he was apologizing.
He didn't apologize. He said, hey, about earlier is what he said. And then Conrad cut him off.
Gotcha. So I guess, yeah.
what he said was, I don't want to say the wrong thing, is what he said.
Oh,
But he didn't apologize.
he didn't
And
apologize.
I think he felt bad,
Right.
but I think he also knew he was right. And that's what he said to him. And that's why
Yeah.
Conrad said, no, I need you to be that honest with me.
Yeah.
But that scene when he walked in there and he said that, I really like how they played that out too, because it showed a connection that I think they're really going to play up in the coming episodes between Devon and Conrad. I mean, we've seen that grow over the past 4.5 years, but I think that this just showed the level of deep connection that those two have in their friendship, where Devon obviously upset him, and Conrad told him to go home, shouldn't be there. But the first person he trusted her care to, other than the neurosurgeon, because that's not in his bag house or in his wheelhouse, is not in his wheelhouse.
You're really not with it today, are you?
I'm trying so hard to just keep talking.
Emotions. If I just keep talking, nothing else will come out.
Just
But-
keep talking and we'll interrupt when, we want to turn. Just go.
And when it stops making sense.
Monkey underpants.
A big bag of weird up there. But when he hands the iPad or what is now the charts to Devon, he's transferring care to her. And it was, of course, right after Belle talked to him. And the other thing I like too is that, because he obviously gave Devon control and he gave her the care over her because he trusts him like he trusts no other doctor. And I really liked seeing it displayed in that way. I thought that was really smart. But Belle was also, it was interesting to see that he was Hodad before because of his bad hands. And now he sort of had to be the bearer of the news of death to everybody else because no one wanted to admit it again. But this time it's like they redeemed the Hodad aspect.
Wow.
Where he was the bringer of death before because he was killing people. But now he's the bringer of death because he's the one who has to keep them focused and on track and listen, this is what we do. And you have to come to terms with this. And I like how they redeemed that in him, because anyone could have been that role, but it was Dr. Bell.
That's awesome. I actually didn't put that together, but
I'm
that's
smart, it's
actually
okay.
really deep.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love that connection.
Wow.
That's the
'Cause I
kind of
love
genius I
Bell's
bring to this table.
This is what you have to offer. You're genius and all-knowing.
Keep coming, keep it coming.
Through your tears.
Tiffany, you're oddly silent. I don't know why you're not heaping praises on me.
I'm trying not to cry
Oh,
because I've got it
you're
on in the
watching it.
background.
Why are you
watching
watching
it
it
right
right
now?
now?
I don't know.
What is wrong with you?
I like torture, apparently.
Why are you punishing yourself?
I don't
God.
know.
Just
I
knowing
told
it's
him to
on your
watch it
TV made
earlier.
me start to cry. Turn it off.
Turn it off because
We
now
know
I'm
it's
depressed just
happening.
thinking about it on your TV.
Kit just came in the room to talk to Conrad. So I'm like, no,
About the
stop
organ
it.
stuff?
Oh no.
Yes.
Oh, that was when his cry sounded the worst.
Yes.
Oh,
no,
that's
no,
I'm
no.
watching that
You
cry
would
right
just
now. And
let
I'm
it
like,
all
no,
out.
I'm glad I
Just
can't hear
stop.
this.
Don't do this to yourself.
No.
This would be so much worse with sound.
Oh, we'd be
Watchers,
hearing
I'm
it
sorry you just had to
too.
listen to us all like shocked, yell at her.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Yeah, that was the moment where I think he finally just he just let it all out. Like he let that emotion just kind of overcome him. I mean, he showed that emotion quite a bit, but that was the time where he could just sit and cry and just be in that situation and in that grief. It wasn't fighting for hope. It wasn't, addressing the situation, executing her wishes. It was just simply being.
Grieving the
In
center of
that.
their world.
Ah,
The sounds that were coming out of him were so haunting.
Mm.
Ooh.
it's-
Did anyone else think when we were in the midst of this and then Mrs. Sandoval came in, did anyone else think, man, I don't care about you right now? Can you go back to the other thing that's happening in the hospital right now, please?
Yeah, because I'm like, here's Jessica and Nurse Hunley and there's Mrs. Sandoval. And I'm like, why are you here?
I'm so annoyed that they appeared on
Like,
the
I'm
screen
sure
right
you're
then.
very, very nice, but go away.
Not the right time to introduce a new character to us, Fox.
Oh.
Not the right time. No, we recorded our live because there was 4 of us that were watching it live together, and it was on Zoom, so we recorded it, and all of us went, "Who is that? We don't care about you." Like all four of us had their reaction to it.
Were the Sandoval's like characters that we had met
No.
previously, or were they like completely new? And
They were
just created
completely,
some
I mean, they
backstory?
weren't new to the characters on the show, but they were new characters to us.
Okay, so that was a really strange time to introduce new characters, especially if the vehicle for that was just to show us how much Nick had touched, the patients' lives. But couldn't they have done that with a patient that, like, by bringing back a patient that we knew and liked?
Well, I think the actual point of them being there was so that we had a tangible way to see that Nick, her gift of organ donation, was going to carry someone else through. And I think that they didn't really have another patient who could benefit from that, other than just saying, like Kit said, I have patients on that list myself. But again, we don't know any of them. So they just brought on a patient who could be revolutionized by this very, very rare opportunity to get this part. And it had to be someone connected to Nick because that would make it meaningful. So I think that was the only reason they were brought on, I think.
It would have been nice for them to bring back somebody we've already met.
Oh, I agree.
That we
I don't know
already
who that
had the
would have been,
connection
though.
with.
Yeah.
I think and they may not have known. I mean, obviously, it wasn't until May that she said that she was going to be leaving the show.
I think it was before that.
Oh, was it before that?
I just don't think they announced it to us until May.
Oh, okay.
They didn't announce it to us until the end of the season.
Oh, got you. Okay. Because I was trying to think like how far back the writing could be to like, hey, we know that this is a storyline where it's going to go, where it's going to end up. So let's go ahead and, with that in mind, like they could have written a story, knowing that it was going to end there, episodes and episodes later, and just be kind of like that shock and awe.
Well, I was reading an article where Matt said that there were a lot of conversations that took place. So like, my impression was it was over months' time. So I don't know when she would have told them, but I think it was probably a couple months before season 4 ended, and then they began to write at the end of season 4 for season 5. Because they film from July until April, like, apparently. So, I mean, they are probably they probably have a general idea of where they want it to start, where they want it to end, but then they're just writing in between there to fill. So I think that's probably what happened.
Absolutely. It was so funny because I didn't even put 2 and 2 together, about the transplant. Like when, AJ walked in and said, well, we have an option of transplant. I was like, why did that never even it seemed like it was such an like it was going to end so obviously there. Like, how did I not see these two storylines simultaneously? Like that was where it was going to lead up to. But I guess you're just so overcome with emotion. You're so in that moment, it didn't even occur to me. I'm sorry.
We picked up on it.
You picked up on it. I think, yeah. I was just like, what is it happening? And I was kind of focusing on like the parallel between, Conrad's about to lose, like she said, now he's going to live without the love of his life, just like you want me to, so I was thinking like that was the parallel, like that was the purpose of it, and then I realized, wait a minute, like Nick can save them one more time. Not just emotionally, but like
permanently.
He's actually going to swoop in and save them, with through the transplant too. So I was like focused more on that, but I guess it's just so caught up in the emotion of the moment, and then I realized, why did I not even see this before? To
be fair, the only reason that we noticed it is because the 4 of us were trying desperately to not emotionally react to anything.
There you go.
So we were working really hard to find a non-emotional connection in this show somehow. It was at least 2 of us who don't like to cry in front of people. We're watching it together. So we were we were working really hard to find. And I mean, the other thing too is that could have only been that had to be the only reason they brought that person on, because there's no other way that they could. And honestly, I didn't they were fine actors, but I am not invested in their storyline, so I didn't really care. But I think that's what they were trying to do, is trying to make it so we cared about them by giving them a piece of Nick. And I don't care about them.
It would have been nice if they could have tried to pull in like a previous patient and decide, oh, okay, maybe this person's going to need a heart transplant or something. Because I know they've had a few of those that Nick has dealt with.
Yeah. And it would be nice to see her organs save someone much younger. Not that older people don't deserve transplants. That's not what I'm saying. I like old people, and in a non-creepy way, I like old people. But I think that he was near the end of his life, and even his wife, he said to his wife, "Can't you just let me go?" And I think part of it was because he was thinking, I've been alive for so long. I feel like I would have connected more if they took one of her young patients that she has dealt with over the years and helped them get through something. And take it from 4 years ago, and they would have been aged by now, so you could have gotten a different actor, but assigned them that role.
Same character.
What were you gonna say, Bethany?
I'm sure I was gonna say that, even as Kit mentioned, she's gonna say, what was it, 8 critical patients, and then I forgot the number of,
dozens,
other
she said.
patients. How many?
Dozens, she said.
Dozens, right. So obviously that probably includes, people of all ages, many children and everything. So, and I think probably made sure that they put that in there to that, hey, it's not just this one patient that you're seeing. Nick is her final act on this earth is to save all of these patients and all of their storylines. And you can only imagine how many stories are going to come out of that, in their world, of just to stop and think about how many people she saved. But then also, in future seasons or future episodes, if they really wanted to get dramatic, they could do that,
Oh, I'm sure they will at some point bring him back to Conrad
somehow or other, and that can help in Conrad's healing and coping. Hey, now you get to see the other side. You get to see the life after this event. You get to see, Nick's, compassion living on, her still touching lives and her legacy.
Yeah. And I think too that so I was watching now, when I watched it the other night, I was watching on Fox Now, and it was like, oh, enjoy your 60 minutes. I was like, oh, okay. But it started beforehand. So it cut out right before the end of that song in the montage, and then didn't pick up until a little bit after they started taking organs out of the room. So I saw that for the first time tonight. Did anyone else find it a little weird how they just kept leaving the room with boxes of organs? Like, to me, it was a little like, that feels morbid. Like, I get what you're doing here. I get this is a good thing, but I don't want to see boxes of organs being taken out of somebody's room. There's a reason I don't cut into people.
It would have been okay if it was just like one time, like one person walking out the box, but it was again and again and again. I was like, is this all from Nick? Because this is
excessive.
That's
Did they leave anything?
It's like, that's kind of twisting the knife just a little bit.
And that's where my head went. I started picturing, oh my gosh, what is she going to look like by the time they're done cutting things out of her? They took out a piece of her throat. They took out a piece of, like, what is she going to look like? She's probably being cremated, but still. Oh God, we still have to do the funeral.
Oh, they're probably going to sprinkle her ashes. That.
What, Bethany?
Oh, I said, I that makes sense. They're probably going to sprinkle her ashes the same way they sprinkled Jessica's, maybe even in the same place. And maybe that's why it makes sense that they took everything. Because I thought that too. I was like, oh my, like they still have to bury her.
I mean, you can't take that many organs out of someone and not have them cremated.
Yeah.
Unless it's closed casket, and then what would be the point?
Right.
There's nothing left to decompose at that point.
They'll probably sprinkle her ashes again like they did with Jessica, which I think would actually be very poetic.
It would, but I don't think they're going to make it that private.
No.
I think Conrad and Kyle might go do that, but I think we're still going to have to undergo a funeral where everyone who has known her is going to appear.
Absolutely.
And that might be where we get some of the cases of, I have this piece of Nick. I have this piece of Nick.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Please don't do that, Fox. Please don't do that. Time jump past the funeral. And just tell us you had the funeral. And this is the one time you can tell, not show.
Just reference the funeral and we'll be good.
I just thought the other day, like, and they probably can't even show it because she's not on the show anymore, but like, how are you going to break the news to Mina? And we're not going to be able to see that happen. But yet maybe it's good because that's going to be a little bit too painful to watch. But
that's what I missed. Like during the whole episode, I would have liked to have
seen that.
During the whole episode, I was thinking, what would Mina have been like?
Right.
during all of this, because you know that her hands would have been all over that case.
Mhm.
Absolutely. She would have been like, I am going to do right by her and Conrad and Gigi by being the best doctor that I've ever been in like this is going to be the best, performance I've ever done as a doctor. And I think that's why she would have been a friend, but I think she would have been a doctor first.
Mhm.
And then in certain moments when necessary, she would have turned that off and then been the friend, but then turn it right back on. And she would have just kept going until there was.
I think
no
she would have
more
probably
to do.
closed herself off until after Nick had died.
You think so?
I don't think she
After-
would have tapped into friend mode until after Nick was dead.
That's true. Probably after she realized that there was nothing else to do medically.
Because do you remember Micah,
Yes.
who had the heart transplant that she was dating for a while, and then he had that episode and she was very, very doctor, and then after it was solved, then she kind of broke down.
Yeah. I think it
that's how
probably
she
would have been
operates.
a larger scale of that.
Mhm. But I think she would have been equal parts. Conrad's thinking in the beginning of, no, she's making it through this because
Right.
I have a say in this, and this is what's happening because I'm saying it's going
Right.
to happen.
Exactly.
But also a little bit of AJ where it's, but this is where we're at. So
Yeah.
I think that would have been a hard transition to watch her come to terms with that, because I think she would have fought like Conrad did at first
Mhm.
and had the same
Yeah.
stance as Conrad did at first. But then I think as she sees the evidence come in, she immediately would have begun to drop that, I think, and that would have been hard to watch.
That would have been very hard to watch, to see that. Yeah.
But I did like that they used Mrs. Sandoval to encourage Conrad. And I mean, I wish it was somebody else because we don't know this woman. So it just seems very disingenuous. But I did like that they did have someone that was not hospital staff that continued to come and talk to Conrad through those hard times, through those hard moments.
I think so too. And I think because she had, I mean, obviously the situation had progressed farther for Conrad and Nick than it did with her and her husband, but there was a time where she was where Conrad was, even though
Mhm.
his journey took him farther. Even in that moment, he was farther along than she was. But there was a moment in her journey in the past that, again, we didn't really get a chance to see, that she was in Conrad's position. Her spouse dying in a hospital, and she really thought that she was gonna lose him.
Mhm.
And so I think it was almost like a place of experience. I know exactly what you're feeling, what you're
Yeah.
going through, at least to a certain extent. I think by that time they both already knew Nick was gone. That's when she finally said, carry her in your heart, because there was a moment where she thought that she was going to
Mhm.
have to carry her husband in her heart the same way. So that's how I kind of took it. It was almost like from experience, like, hey, I've been where you are, except I came out of it, but and then of course in this case, obviously didn't have that same happy ending for Nick and Conrad.
Yeah.
But it was nice to see that and someone outside of the hospital
Mhm.
with
Just wish it was someone we knew who I
Right.
cared anything about.
Someone whose opinion we cared about.
Exactly.
Like, I don't want you comforting Conrad. I want someone I know.
I should be the one hugging him. I know him better than this lady does. She's never met him before. Or at least not that we know of. I don't really want to hug him, but because I want him to come on the show. So I'm not going to openly admit to that.
You can't get too weird about it.
But I do hope that because when she walked right after she comforted in the hallway, when she said, "Is it Nick?" And also did you notice it was his wedding ring that he had taken off and was playing with in his hand?
Yes.
That made me so sad.
That I think that he was realization of, this is a memory now. This is not
Sad. Sad.
ouch.
But when it was in that scene and she was walking out and he wouldn't look at her, he was actually kind of looking away from her at the floor. And he said, "Sherry, don't let him give up." And I hope that is just as surface level as it seems. And I hope they aren't going to use that later on to have Conrad heap guilt on himself for giving up because of what Kyle said to him too. And he said, "I will never forgive you for this." You can say, because what Kyle said to him is, you can save anyone in this building, but you won't save Nick. And so I hope that line of "don't let them give up," I hope that's not going to keep coming back to where Conrad is saying, "I gave up. I should have fought her. I gave up." I hope they don't do that. I hope he just focuses on finding what happened. What do you guys think happened, by the way? Because they were very obviously that's going to be a thread here for a while.
Right.
Well, they did say there were no other cars involved.
Mm-hmm. No other
So-
cars. She had no alcohol in her system. Her tox screen came back good, apparently. Well, they just said alcohol. He said tox screen shows no alcohol. They didn't say anything else.
At first, I just thought it was just a really horrible accident, a means of ending her storyline. But then when they started mentioning, cars involved, I thought, oh my, like they're going to capitalize and make some sort of, big plot line over it. So I started getting deep, like conspiracy theories, like, what if this is the next big bad and this is all part of it, or a previous big bad? Somebody's taking, there was some sort of foul play involved, and you're going to take the whole season investigating, suddenly it's going to be medical / crime show, and someone's taking revenge on Conrad, or some, we find out how it was applicable. But, I guess you could go as deep as you wanted with that, or, I mean, it may not even go that direction. I know that in the previews for the next episode, it kind of made it seem like Conrad was going through that same, rabbit hole. That's what Devon said. And then I started thinking, well, maybe that's not the case. If Conrad's doing that and they kind of made it seem like everybody's telling him not to, then maybe that wasn't the case. But you never know. It's hard to base a theory off of just the teaser for next week's episode. But I'd love to see where they're going to go with that, if they're going to capitalize off of it or not.
Mm-hmm. I think too that Conrad is able to, even in the midst of the pain he was going through, he was still able to make level-headed decisions.
Absolutely.
And Conrad's gut is almost always correct in every situation that came up. I was actually wondering if when Mrs. Sandoval said, we were so happy when Nick told us this diagnosis, we didn't know it existed. I wonder if Nick actually talked to Conrad and her found it together, because that's kind of Conrad's thing, right? Is finding diseases that no one has heard of or no one has thought of. And I'm wondering, because he has to be onto something. His gut is never wrong. And it's, right. I think that they set it up to be like the people who he works with are just going to think, this is not the way to grieve your wife. You got to go somewhere else. You have to move on. You got to whatever. But I think the reason Conrad is going to dig in is because he knows something is wrong. I think it's going to end up being that everyone thinks he's just being crazy in grief, but I think it's going to end up being that he is right, that something is wrong. We also have to remember that Nick's character is based off of a real life person who was a whistleblower. Whistleblowers are not looked at kindly, and especially with the big bad that we ended last season with was Big Pharma. And so there could be a thread there that Conrad might be trying to follow. I mean, obviously it's all conjecture on us at this point. I'm just trying to avoid the last scene we have to talk about. So we're just talking about right now.
We'll just let Maureen ramble until she doesn't make any more sense. Then we have to move on.
I do think though that there is going to be something we're going to find, and that this is going to be Conrad's fight for a while, but I think something is going to come out of it.
Oh yeah, I think they'll definitely be pulling that storyline along for several weeks.
And I think he's going to be proven right. There's something there.
Oh, Conrad is always right. So I mean, find something, just like Maureen. Conrad is always right.
More people need to come to this realization. I don't know why more haven't yet.
You just feel so sad. I was like, I have to tell her she's right a few times, and then maybe she'll like perk up a little bit.
Oh, it's pity accolades. I see how it is. All right.
Well, cool summer's over, so I mean, you don't have as many opportunities anymore.
It's true. When we were watching it live, Jeanette actually said that, for those of you listening, Jeanette is one of our other podcasters and owners, but she had said that she thought Nexus Life was going to somehow be involved in this.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm not seeing that thread yet, but she said that because they mentioned the name of the company so many times, and it was weird when after Kit had talked to him about what was going to happen, how she just kind of appeared in the doorway. Like she was just standing there, and she didn't really like move her feet. It was almost like she just pivoted into the doorway, and then they zoomed in on her face. That was disturbing. I don't like that.
I thought it just because it meant like this is it, like that's what she represents.
That could be it. She just looks so nefarious the way she pivoted in the doorway like a door hinge. It was weird.
Yeah. I think they're definitely going to have some fun with it. It doesn't make sense to go that
fun with it.
But no,
what's the matter with you?
No. What I meant was that they're going to, as far as like the storyline of what caused the accident, they're not just going to let it go and be like, well, it was an accident. Nobody knows what happened and we move on. I think they're going to use that to be a plot point is what I meant to capitalize off of it, to let it have a purpose, to be a plot point versus just because they could have just done a regular accident, if that was all that they intended to do.
They honed in on that one too many times for it to be just that.
Exactly. For it to just not be a regular accident and the other family was fine, or it was a deer in the road or something. They honed in on, hey, there's something really not right about what happened here, and we have no idea. That it was such a mystery. And I know obviously, Conrad's gonna really dig deep into it. I'm wondering, because it could just be like a more of a plot line they're gonna elaborate on, or is it just gonna be a means of a coping mechanism for Conrad? Because
I hope they don't do that. That's so tired.
I think so too, because it wouldn't, if it was just a coping mechanism for Conrad, that I would be horribly disappointed. Like, there needs to be more to it.
Yeah. And they better not just say, oh, she fell asleep at the wheel, because that's not what the show's about. Don't take, you do big things on the show. Don't take a main character away by saying she fell asleep at the wheel. Simple as that. Don't do that.
No, of course not.
Conrad wouldn't accept that though, because he doesn't let things go.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if there was evidence of it though, he would buy into the evidence.
Yeah, but that can't be in TV land. That can't be.
Especially because he needs someone to fight, so they have to give him someone to fight. That's where his sweet spot. That's why people are so endeared to the show, because of him and how he fights.
Absolutely. And I think that's probably why they made it more than just a regular car accident.
Mm-hmm.
It could have just been, but no, it needs to be in true form of the show and of Conrad, and you need to have that. You need to see him, and that's a form of closure probably for him and for us as well.
What if it was Logan Kim? What if what if Logan Kim did something to her spa water, her brake lines, and Barrett Kane paid him off to do it because Logan Kim is destitute now?
I wonder if it's going to create a new big bad, or if it's going to play off of a previous big bad.
Oh, I don't think they're going to play off a previous one. I just want to see Logan Kim and Barrett Kane punished for something.
Yeah,
you just want to see bad things happen to them.
I do. Yes, I do.
You're going to jump into your television and tell Conrad that it was Logan Kim, just so that way you can see. No, I was kidding.
Conrad, it was Logan Kim. Also, Barrett Kane did something too.
We don't know what, but he's involved.
Why can't they hear me?
There's your new plot line, Fox. I knew you were desperate for one, and I just
handed
it to you in a silver platter. You're welcome.
Based on our expert experience in writing for TV shows like The Resident, this is the direction you
and
can
my
go.
superior medical knowledge that I have on every aspect of the body.
Absolutely. That could
Fully
be
able to say body part names and everything.
Michael Hogan's first episode that he directs. Here you go.
Oh, yes.
We have the script for you. We got this, guys.
We decided with Michael Hogan that we are going to have that there's going to be an episode that's just him narrating the CTV footage that he finds in the hospital. That's all it's going to be. That would be hilarious, though. You have to admit, listening to Doc Nolan narrate that.
Yes, I would watch that episode again and again and again.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be amazing. Tasso would come in at one point and be like, what you doing? Eating a sandwich? they just sit there and narrate together. That would be amazing. I would love that.
That would be epic.
I could watch a whole episode about the two of them.
Yeah.
Yep. That would be so much happier than this one that we just watched.
They owe it to us. After putting us through the emotions of the episode, they owe it to us.
Give us a Dr. Nolan and Irving Feldman heavy episode next, please.
We need this.
We like Conrad, but he's sad right now. So can you just please give us the other
You owe it to us, Fox.
All right, so we know that Nick saved that guy by giving him her trachea. That she saved someone's, I don't even know what organs they give out. In an
all of
donation.
them, it looked like.
Yeah, I know. They gave away her stomach and her intestines and her liver and her spleen and her gallbladder and all sorts of things. Eyeballs,
at
probably.
least 8 critical.
Hand. Oh, they could have done a hand. I just crossed myself out a whole lot. We don't need to go down this list. I don't know why I started. Guys, you're supposed to stop me when I start getting weird.
You were laughing, so we figured that was better than crying. We just let it go.
Yeah,
but it makes our podcast a lot more fun when you do
when I weird myself
weird
out.
things. Yeah.
Thanks, Eve.
Where do you think we get our listeners from?
So we've seen that. The other sad thing about Kyle too was that when he was in there and he first appeared, and Kit was very emotional, obviously emotional, because she knows what direction it's headed. She knows what's happening.
Yes.
And she says it just appears like she's sleeping, and he's like, well, that's good, right? Like, oh no. No. And then he brought those flowers because sensory things could help her wake up and just but then when they said when he came out, he's like, no, she's fine. We saw her hand move. Conrad, tell her we saw her hand move. They just everything he said
that
was
poor man.
And then when he said, I'm not gonna lose another daughter in this hospital, like, that man is gonna leave that town and never come back. I mean, I think he will eventually for Gigi. I think they'll have him keep like Marshall. I mean, of course, Marshall has a position in the hospital, but I think Kyle will have to be able to come back at some points. I don't think he'll be a regular anymore, but I think he'll come back at some points for Gigi.
Absolutely.
But I don't think he'll be a support for Conrad for a while. I think that he's going to be done with Conrad for a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, when he was going on and on about the sensory things, and we saw her hand move, I was like, somebody, for the love of God, give that man a hug.
Oh.
Marshall tried to, and he said, don't manage me, Marshall.
Yeah.
Kyle needs to stay on just so we can see more of like the whole Kyle Marshall dynamic.
I know.
That was so good.
Yeah.
Talk about Orange some more. I want to get backstory there.
We need to go back to the Orange days. Remember those days? Oh.
And now that Nick is gone, who's going to explain why Orange is a thing for him?
Right.
Someone has to.
Someone has to do that. Oh man. Yeah, it's hard. I was thinking that, and I know that Corbin Burnson was mentioning about how he was almost ready to move on, to other projects. And I was thinking if maybe that was like part of this, and
well, he said that the reason though he said that was because he said he didn't know how much more of a benefit he could be to the show because he's not a medical doctor, is what he said though.
Right, that is true. And he could bring so much more to the table now with the situation because Gigi's his only family. Like he said, she's all I have left.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, obviously there's Conrad. He wasn't really counting Conrad in that moment, but Gigi, you still have her, and I think that kind of almost not livens up, but like refreshes his character, his role in that show, because now, I mean, that's Gigi's closest connection to her mother. I mean, outside of Conrad, but I mean, that's Nick's father, and that's his grandchild, and there definitely needs to be some sort of resolution. It's going to be a while, but I think there's going to be a moment where Kyle and Conrad have that moment of they're going to have to somehow make some peace and move on, especially for Gigi's sake. I mean, it's his granddaughter, there's going to be holidays and birthdays and everything that he's going to have to be present for at some point. But I was really looking forward to seeing his acting after he had mentioned the acting that he had done for the scene. And when Nick was in the hospital, I was like, wow, that was just, when she was injured, what is he going to do now that she's gonna be gone? And I hope we even have more scenes up ahead with that, because, it definitely ended very harshly with him. But, after the interview, I just was really excited to see how he was going to react. And it was almost like he was numb at first. The first time he came in, he threw stuff on the floor. He was crying on the ground. This time he was just kind of like clutching the flowers. Like there was just a level of numb that all of that, and it was beyond all of that emotion.
Well, because she looked okay though.
Yeah, she looked okay. Yeah. So maybe in his mind, he just wasn't letting it sink in, how bad it was, but I just was so excited to see what he was going to do with that, because now he can utilize all of that emotion that he was going to use the first time. And to see that, I think if you could see it like go through different, like when she looked okay, so he wasn't so freaked out, then he sees what's happening and starts panicking, and it's just, you see like all the different levels of grief that he's already going through just in that one episode.
I think honestly, I think they're going to use Kyle and Conrad's relationship as a vehicle for some healing for Conrad, because I think that Marshall, because we have to remember that one, he lost his wife really traumatically. Right. He lost his second daughter really traumatically. He lost his third daughter really traumatically. Right before in season 4, he was suicidal. And that was before he lost Nick. And when Marshall had come into the hospital in this episode, he said, I'm really worried about Kyle. So I'm wondering if Marshall's going to find him on the floor after taking too many pills or something like that. And Conrad's going to have to save him. And Conrad's going to have to remind him that, listen, Nick was not all you had. You have me, and you have to be there for Gigi because you have to tell her about Nick. And I think that's going to kind of pull him back.
I think so.
I just kind of see something like that happening because there has to be, for him to say, I'll never forgive you, there has to be a resolution for that for Conrad, because the look on Conrad's face when he heard that, we can't keep Conrad in that place of
Right.
holding himself responsible because of what Kyle said. There has to be a relief there at some point.
Yeah, we just can't just let it end there. It has to move on from that somehow.
And I think, I mean, he was in a desperate situation, you know, so his moment not being a doctor, all he thought of was she has a chance at life and you're taking it from her prematurely, you know, and he's going to come to grips with it. You know, emotions were high, they're going to calm down. And like you said, the connection of Gigi and, you know, even Conrad, you know, that being his only family. And I think that's definitely going to bring it to a point of resolution. And that's definitely going to be a springboard for healing and for moving on. We have some friends that they lost years ago that they had gone through, you know, a totally different scenario, but they had lost a child, and they said, you know, it's just something that you learn to live with, you never get over. And so I think that's something that they're all going to go through, you know, and they're going to have to learn to live with that together. You know, Conrad on his own won't be able to. That's why he's jumping into this investigation. I think that's just his means of coping and
I don't
just
think that.
not breaking down. You don't think so?
I don't think that's just his means of coping. I think something is wrong, and I think he knows.
Oh yeah, no, it absolutely is wrong. I think it absolutely is wrong. I think he's just not excited, but just
desperate for sure, but
desperate to be able to have something, you know, to put his attention and his focus on, because if he doesn't, he's just going to fall apart. He's going to fall into that dark abyss. You know,
in the preview, he even said
tethering him to reality.
In the preview, he said, my daughter's going to ask me what happened to her mother, and I need to be able to tell her what happened to her mother.
Right. It's a point of resolution. You know, it's a means of, hey, I get to closure. I get to have this closure. I get to share this with Gigi. I get to move forward. You know, we get to learn how to live in this life together. We get to move forward and have this, you know, not just stuck here in this place of grief, you know. And I think that's going to help them all move forward together. You know, Kyle, Marshall, Conrad, Gigi, you know, as a family, you know, as well, and find out whatever bad guys did what they did, get some justice for Nick as well.
Yeah, and I think too that as much as I love what Nick, because Nick did soften Conrad. Nick brought something to Conrad that he needed, and she brought. I don't want to say that she brought confidence that, or like a surety to Conrad, because I think Conrad was pretty sure of himself before that. So I don't think he needed help there. But she brought a sense of assurance that came from loving himself, and the ability to be able to be vulnerable with other people, where I don't think he ever really had it before. It was always very, I'm not going to wear my heart on my sleeve and you're going to do what I say because that's how I control things. But there was something deeper that Nick was able to root out. So I like what she did for him. But I think that, and it was brought up several times last season, them together married was kind of boring. So I am thankful for that Conrad, but you know, I thought that they were going to go a different way before. Of course, this was before we knew Nick was leaving or Emily was leaving the show. I thought that the end of season 4, Conrad had some fight to him. And maybe that's why, because they knew that Nick was leaving and they knew Emily was leaving. Maybe they wrote it to, okay, he's going to go back to normal. Maybe that should have been our indication that Emily was coming back to the show, because Conrad is returning to who he was a little bit as it pertains to fighting against the big bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think there's one scene that we haven't talked about yet. We've talked about every other one, I think. We've even talked around this one. We've talked about the scenes after this one and all the scenes before this one.
I think we subconsciously did that on purpose.
Well, this is the scene I've been intentionally avoiding all night. The montage of walking down that hallway.
Oh God, that was terrible.
Did they really have to play Iris? Was that really necessary?
It was bittersweet, but I was like, oh gosh, this is going to be hard.
Brutal is the word I would use.
It was very intense. I was thinking before, oh, there's got to be some sort of little tribute to commemorate, her time on the show, the character of Nick. But I wonder how they're going to do that. Now
Well,
I
then
know how they did that.
They started playing Iris. I was like, oh God, they're doing this song.
I like the little clips they showed of all the friendships she's made and,
I think it
all
was
the lives
necessary
she's
for sure.
touched.
It was just so appropriate, though, to be able to see, each and every character, because you've seen that in previous medical shows where, they line up as they're wheeling them in, from other organ donors. And I thought, oh, of course, you got to do that for Nick. You got to give that tribute because, she's not just another patient, she's their friend and their colleague, and they've seen her every day. And of course, the whole hospital is going to be there to see her off.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I didn't realize that was the montage that was going to take place. And then it started and I said, oh, that's what they're doing. It was very intense.
And what I liked is that they showed the first scenes with these people, except for with Irving and Jessica. But that was one of the first scenes we see with Irving and Jessica together that Nick was a part of. And I think that's why that was the one that was shown. Because they showed Irving and Jessica together in the lineup instead of separate, and everyone else who was separate got their first scene with them. And I like that the last one to be shown was Devon's, and that even made a tie back to Conrad. And I think that was also kind of an indication for us as an audience to know what was coming next, because the line she said was, "Watch and learn, Conrad's the one who tightens the bolt."
Wow.
And I think that was our indication that, okay, this is where our season is going. It's going to be back to OG Conrad.
Yeah.
But with the softer side, because he's got Gigi now.
Right.
So he still has that softness, but I think that's going to propel him to be a little more intense.
I think so.
Because he's also fighting for Nick through Gigi, also fighting for Gigi just because she's Gigi.
Absolutely.
But I think that where my TV cut out, or it stopped playing and said, okay, you must log in now. It was right after Devon had his, and I think AJ was closing the door. And then I had to get on my laptop quick. And it was a very abrupt change from Iris to Bob Dylan. Like, what? Why is Forever? And that was Forever Young, really? That's the song you're going to play as organs are being wheeled out of her room, Forever Young.
With boxes and boxes of organs.
I think they were trying to say that she was going to live forever.
I know that's what they were trying to say. That's why it was morbid.
I know. Yeah.
And they could have picked, it should have been a smoother transition song, though, to go from that. Because, they did a sweet rendition, a nice, calming, beautifully sad rendition. Iris is already kind of an emotional song, but the way they had the rendition, that's not a word.
Rendition.
It is now.
What is the word I'm thinking of?
Rendition.
Yeah. What is wrong with me? The rendition that they chose was so soft and sad and beautiful. And then it went into Bob Dylan's voice. There was no, it just, and I thought maybe it just felt that abrupt because it shut off and then I had to start up again. But I watched it all the way through tonight without any breaks, and it was that abrupt. I think they should have picked a smoother, maybe even done a different rendition of that song, something so it could lead in, but it was very clear that, okay, she's dead now. Now she's going to live forever. And she's also going to be forever young because she died at a young age, but I don't think we needed that message. I think we got that loud and clear the whole episode.
It was an interesting choice of song for sure.
I think it was their attempt of trying to sound hopeful, because then that led into this scene where, AJ, when they were doing the transplant surgery, and AJ says, no time for tears now. And right now we focus and celebrate the miracle. So I think maybe that was their attempt of saying that, because it led into that, which even that was, emotional because, here's all this tragedy happening. And then all of a sudden, here's the miracle, here's life, someone has another chance. So maybe that was what they were trying to do, in that montage.
I do think that's what they were trying to do, but it was a jarring change. There was no transition to it. It was just, we stopped here, now we're here. And there was no it felt very disconnected because it was, you got to admit, Bob Dylan's voice is an acquired taste. It's got a very specific sound to it. And then I don't even know if it actually was Bob Dylan singing it, but it sounded to me like it was. But you go from that soft, smooth woman's voice singing Iris into a jarringly upbeat, very stringy sounding voice. It was very jarring. So instead of giving you hope, my senses are trying to recover rather than me thinking about the hope of what they choosing the song Forever Young was actually meaning. My senses were just trying to recover from the jarring, abrupt change.
So we need to be replaced. We need to replace the writers and whoever picks the songs for the show.
We need to replace the writers. We've been complimenting the writers all night.
Well, no, we want to help the writers and replace the song people.
There you go.
Keep the person who chose Iris, but the one who chose Bob Dylan, I think they had a bad day.
Honestly, I think the Bob Dylan song would have worked because that woman doesn't sing Iris. The Goo Goo Dolls sing Iris. And they chose a different version of the song. They didn't choose the Goo Goo Dolls version. They chose a slowed down, melodically infused female singing that song. Why didn't they do that for Bob Dylan? They could have gradually made it more upbeat, but they didn't have to be Bob Dylan's stringy voice coming out loud and proud. Choose a different rendition because the song made sense. The song choice itself made sense. It was the sound that didn't make sense connected with the previous song that didn't make sense.
Right. But at least they didn't use a Napoleon Dynamite remix. It wasn't.
I might have appreciated that. I mean, I'd get behind that throwback.
Oh man.
Honestly, I think this is pretty good because usually we have to say much sooner. We really do love The Resident way before this. And we're at the end of the episode now, and we haven't had to say that once. So, I mean, kudos to us.
We usually
And the
have to
writers
say
who wrote
that-
the episode. Good job, you.
We usually have to say that in every podcast for every show we do.
Yes. Okay. So if you are listening to our podcast only for the Resident stuff, like, I don't know if you're an actor or crew member or writer on the show, know that we do this for every single show that we do. And it's because we love you so deeply. You should hear things we say about ourselves. So, I mean, it's nothing against you.
We rip the show apart because we love the show.
Yes. And our thing is being analytical. And I like that. But I did love the montage, but I didn't like how crappy I felt after it. Because I just felt so, and they all did a really good job because they all, I don't know if it was all feigned. I mean, it's not like Emily Van Camp died.
No.
And it's not like Emily Van Camp is never going to be able to talk to these people again. So it's not like they've lost a dear, dear friend. So I don't think it was, I don't think it was solely just, hey, our friend's leaving the show, we're all sad about it. At least judging by the talks that people have had, the interviews we watched, I don't think that's the case. So it had to be all just their acting. They did a really good job looking devastated, but desperately trying to hold it together as Conrad walked down the aisle. And honestly, Conrad's face as they walked down there was the worst. And then when he took off her wedding ring.
Yes,
Oh.
I was just about to say that.
I thought I just recovered from everything. I was like, okay, it's the bittersweet moment. We're okay. And then he took out the wedding ring. It's like, oh, here we go again.
Yes.
They just keep coming.
I can't even think of words to describe that scene.
Ugh.
But and then because they show him putting it on her finger, and then they show her taking it off. I mean, to see that scene, what it represented, like that was his goodbye. That was him letting her go as he.
Oh, I don't think that was him letting her go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was like, I think that was, to me, that was him pulling off the wedding ring was like,
I think it was him keeping her
the
with
dirt
him.
on the coffin, Say that again.
I think that was him keeping her with him.
Oh, yes. No,
Like,
actually, that's actually a better
This
way.
is a
You're
part
right.
of you, and I'm going to take this off and I'm going to keep it with me because this is the only thing I have left of you.
You know
So
what?
I'm
That's
keeping it with
true.
me.
That's
I
a better
know.
way of doing it. And
I know.
you know what? That's even better because that was because of course the advice he was given was keep her in your heart. She's gonna live forever with you. You carry with, and I think that was the physical representation of that.
You flipping
And
me
you're
off,
right.
Eve?
Yeah, it's taking her with you. But I guess what I meant by letting go was
No.
that he was letting her body go, like literally letting her body go where it was supposed to go. So I think it was a transition of holding on to having Nick's body here and what are we going to do to this is his reality now.
Mhm.
That this is how he's going to carry Nick with him forever, is in that means in his heart with the ring, not having her physically here with him anymore,
Yeah.
having her here in that sense. So That's what I was trying to say, but I couldn't get. I literally just couldn't find the words to describe that scene. I've been thinking about it
But
for the
you
past 2 days. Like, how am I going to describe that? You know?
I will say though, you just reminded me of something else. The advice that Mrs. Sandoval gave Conrad really annoyed me and felt really cheesy because I didn't know who that woman was.
Oh no!
And all I could think of is, what does it mean coming from you?
They should
It
have done
means
something a little bit better with that.
Kit could have said it to him.
Yeah.
I don't know why they
Yeah.
had that lady say it to him.
That's exactly
Didn't Kit lose somebody? It was her son-in-law or her daughter or somebody.
I
Didn't she
think
lose somebody a while back?
He survived
Her
after all
son-in-law.
that she almost did.
her son-in-law had cancer or something.
Yeah, and so she went
Yeah.
through the same thing Mrs. Sandoval did. Why
Yeah,
couldn't Kit
that's-
have said it?
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, this would have been so much more meaningful if it came from Kit, who we like, and we're not spending the whole conversation thinking, who the heck is this person?
Yeah. I just felt like I don't know. It was such a cheesy line that it had, from my point of view, it would have needed to come to someone who I was connected to receive that line with any sort of grace. I don't know. The
That's
fact
true.
that it came from a complete stranger was just like, ugh.
Yeah. Sometimes you wonder, like, how much thought did they put into it? Because I was thinking before Emily chose to leave, what would the storyline have been? Where would the plot have gone? Because obviously Nurse Nick would have still been there. And so you almost wonder, like, how much, obviously they put a lot of thought and effort into it, but, maybe if this was something that was going to happen all along, that, oh, well, this is the season, we're going to just go ahead and write this character out versus, maybe they would have executed that whole plot line a little bit differently. Maybe things like that would have happened different. They would have picked a character that would have been applicable to the situation that we had already made a connection with versus just, oh, well, let's go ahead and let's pick a COVID patient and Nick help them, and just kind of throwing it all,
But they did it a couple times last year too, where they like with Billy. Remember,
Right.
all of us were like, wait, have we met her before? But we
Yeah.
didn't. They were explaining her story rather than showing us the relationship. So I think that's what they did here.
Right.
But I also think that the reason they had Mrs. Sandoval deliver that comforting line is because they were trying to force a connection with her. And they were trying to force a connection with her husband. And the only way we could feel a connection to them is if they had a deep connection to Conrad, who the whole episode was about him suffering.
Yeah.
But it fell flat for me. But everything else in the episode was great. But I mean, the other thing too is that you can't expect an audience to get connected with a brand new character in the midst of what was happening and what this. I mean, we all knew. The
Right.
entire resident fandom knew what this episode was about. It was
Right.
just a really weird time to bring someone new in because we aren't focused on them at all. We don't want to be focused on them at all. We want to focus on the grief of losing this character and the grief that our main guy is going to feel. That's what we want to focus on. We don't want to focus on anybody new. We don't care about anybody new.
Even if it could have been anybody else, even if it wasn't like, look at even Belle's son. Like, we haven't seen him yet this season. It could have been, he's not gone through something like that. I think that's why they picked Mrs. Sandoval, because her storyline was paralleling Conrad to a certain extent. But there's so many options that they could have picked, that could have been Devon, who lost his father, that could have been, I don't know who could have said that would have come, it would have played out better.
I think they had to also have it come from a spouse and a husband. A wife and a husband.
I
Is what
think
they were
so
trying to
too.
do.
Yeah,
But it should still be, I still think it should have been someone we knew. That's another point though, that when Leela and Devon were standing in the back, when they found out that he was the one who was going to have to deliver the test to Nick, and she said, "Are you ready for this?" And he said, "Am I ready for it? No. Is it going to completely destroy me? Yes." And that was at that moment I had just realized, oh no, he just lost his dad this year too. And now he's losing somebody else, and he's got to be directly responsible for the test that causes her to be taking off all this stuff. Devon, I think, is going to have, I think this is going to be a really cool year for his character. I think that he's going to shine more than he has before, because even in the first episode, it was the end of season 4, it was his contact that brought, was it Ruth? What was her name? Barrett's lady. Rose, that got her, caused her to be healed. Of course, it ended up being bad in the end, but in the very first episode of this season, it was also Devon's contact that fixed the hack to the thing. So I think that Devon is really going to come out on top in this season, but I think we're going to see him work through grief in a more healthy way because he's got Leela now. So I like that we're going to get to see that storyline redeemed, because when his dad died, he obviously did not handle it very well.
No.
And it was bad. And so I think we're going to be able to see him come through that. But I was really sad for him that he had to do 2 in a row. That's just sad. And he does, his sad face is there's no picnic either.
Yeah.
Because he started to tear up in that scene. I was, no, don't do it. Don't do it. No, 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 no. Leela's not crying. Don't cry.
Yeah. It was hard. And, to see it affected all of them. Like you said, here's Nick, his father, now, probably one of his best friends. I mean, I think Conrad is probably his best friend. So like, here's his best friend's wife, just they're all so close. They're family. They're not just friends. Even Kit was saying, hope you know how much we all loved her. It's cool to see that they're just a family, and to see all of them, like when Conrad first got to the hospital, when I was watching it, it was like, wow, here he is surrounded by all these people, but like no one else existed. He's running in, they're talking to him, like literally nothing else in the world existed but Nick. None of that was happening around him. He couldn't, he didn't see any of it, and then finally when, he did interact with them, and he did, they immediately went into action and became that support system around him. But I think it was almost like at the beginning, he was almost still in his own little world with just him and Nick. It almost felt like, I don't want to say the word isolated because he was surrounded by so many people he loved, but like he was just in his own little emotional world, just him and Nick and Gigi. That's all that existed, and then finally you could see that world slowly expand and little by little encompassed everyone else. And then of course, by the end of the episode, they're all in that same world with him.
And when it expanded is when he had to give up, because he had to rely on them. That scene when Billy's trying to tell him that she has to be put into a coma, and he said, oh my gosh, I don't know why I'm bringing this up right now, because I started to feel my eyes water the moment I started thinking about it. He said, how did he word it? He said, what if that's the end and I never get to talk to her again? I can't let her go. Like it just, that he was so afraid to put her in that coma because he thought that would be what causes him to never hear her voice again. Was just, and it was that moment that he started to let other people in, was that moment when he confessed how afraid he was, and that was when he opened it up a little bit more to everybody else. And I did too like how Marshall and him started to grow even more than we've seen, because that's something we've wanted to happen for a long time. We wanted to see the reconciliation of the relationship, but in this episode when he hugged Conrad and he said, I've got you, like that was a really, really good highlight for me in this episode. What are you laughing at, Eve? Are you laughing at me? Oh, I thought you were laughing at how I was saying this.
Why are you laughing at our pain?
I'm laughing now because I'm confused, but no.
Maybe I was just trying to create a reason for me to not get emotional.
There you go. Here you go.
But I thought that was a really good highlight for me in the episode, because I'm excited to see that. I think Marshall's going to be a huge pillar for Conrad coming up, and I'm really, really excited about it.
Absolutely. Well, he's walked through in his shoes already. He's been through that.
I hope we see more of that, of what happened with his mom and his dad.
Because now he knows exactly what he's going through. He knows what he's feeling. Like not everyone in the world, like you were saying earlier, had to come from a husband and wife situation to give him that advice. No one else in the world, like even Devon, okay, well, it was his father, it wasn't his spouse, so no one else knows exactly what Conrad is feeling of losing his wife, but Marshall does.
Why wasn't Marshall the one to say that to him then?
Marshall should have been the one to say that.
I was just thinking that. Why couldn't Marshall have delivered that line?
You know what?
Missed an opportunity, resident.
I bet you there'll be probably future scenes. Maybe I was hoping that that's what you see in the future between their relationship of him sitting down saying, "Son, this is how you live. I know exactly what you're going through. I've felt this. So I've been where you are, and this is what you do, and this is how you take step towards the light out of this. This is how you cope and move forward." And and so they're gonna, I think it's gonna bring their relationship to a whole new level, a better level. Like you're saying, it's something we've always wanted to see. We always want to see that reconciliation between them, and that much closer. And he's almost just gonna be like a guide, for him to just
absolutely
help him walk this road.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more that relationship build more, because it has gotten exponentially better since Marshall first walked on the show. But now we can see that there's definitely potential for that relationship to get even stronger. So I'm
Does that
excited.
become anyone else's, like, one of your favorite relationships to watch?
to
I
Marshall
like
and
that.
Conrad.
Yeah, that's been one of my favorite relationships to watch evolve.
It is,
'Cause
yeah.
It started out very complicated. Like their
And
relationship
Yeah.
it went from volatile to complicated to now it's more of like a true father-son
Mm-hmm. I love
relationship.
that.
That healing, you know.
Telling you, man, you put parent and kid together and you redeem them. I'm there for it. You break it off, and I'm gonna be a hot mess.
Oh,
Okay, is there anything else about this episode we have not discussed yet?
I don't know. I'm looking. I literally was sitting there typing notes, and they look like gibberish because I'm watching the show.
There's big wet
Fighting back
circles all over all
emotion.
of your words.
Say that again.
There's big wet droplets all over your words that you can't explain where they came from.
It's all
That's why I
gibberish. I can't
take
see what it
notes.
is. Yeah.
Have any of you guys ever seen the movie The Jerk?
No.
Okay,
I'm
no.
not.
Tiffany's
Yeah.
gonna get this reference, and I'm gonna say it purely for Tiffany's sake because I want to laugh, and I think Tiffany will get it. So it's Steve Martin. It's like a 1978, I think, Steve Martin film, and Bernadette Peters is in it, and she writes him this letter, and he gives it to him in the bath, and he's trying to read it, and he's an idiot. Like he's a complete moron, and he's trying to read it, and so the water has made the ink run, and he's reading it as if that's what it's supposed to be. So every time he reads a word, he's like, because he can't read it because the ink is run, and so he thinks that's what the word is. That's
Bethany,
what
you
Bethany's
know,
notes look right now.
yeah, you missed an opportunity, Bethany. You could have just been spouting gibberish.
I could have been like,
Hour and
okay,
a
let
half.
me read you my notes.
I'm leaving this in, by the way. This is not getting
Oh
edited
no.
out.
That's awesome. So
Everything
then
gets
everybody
to say.
can send us waterproof notepads or something like
There you go.
that.
It's called
Oh,
dry
yeah,
erase
move on.
board, Tiffany or Bethany. It's
What was that?
called a dry erase board.
Oh, dry erase board.
Anyway, say what you were saying before. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
I know what I was saying is that I took notes during the episode as I was watching it because I was literally there's just so much happening and one thing and then another. So I'm like literally like, taking the notes simultaneously watching it and so, trying to keep track with everything that was happening, and it's just it's crazy, it was so many things. So I was like, let me look at my notes and see what I put. I gotta see where we didn't cover something. I gotta find it. But the one thing I did put on my notes that I see here, who was it that said they added Nick to their prayer group? Like I was like, there you go, because that would have been like the first thing I did.
Mhm. I like
hope
that they
that's
put that in there
okay.
too. I appreciated that.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
That was the nurse who was that patient fought her first day and ended up
That's right.
in the closet
Mhm.
crying, and Nick was the one who came in there and said, because that was her montage memory, is how do you do this every day?
Yeah.
And Nick was the one to encourage her to keep going.
Wow, that's awesome. That's right.
I remember that episode where the guy like was beating her up because he wanted drugs.
Oh, and then Kyle was the one that came in and rescued
Mhm.
her.
Yep.
So that was just so significant. I think that's why they made sure that she was in this episode, because she was so tied to that family.
Yeah, because we haven't seen her since, I don't think, have we?
I don't think so. I honestly thought that she wasn't there anymore.
I think maybe we saw her once after that. And I remember when I saw her, I was like, oh, wait, that's like, I was really surprised that she was still
There.
around, because it seemed to me like she was just going to be like a one note character.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if
Right.
she's gonna start to rise up the way Nick did.
Mm,
I hope
That's
not.
true.
I don't really want another Nick. I don't think it should be replaced.
no. I mean, obviously there's going to be room for more characters to come in. But
I hope they don't bring in more
agree
characters.
that-
I hope they elevate the ones that they have that are background players,
Yeah.
like
I
Dr.
think so.
Irving and Dr. Nolan and Jessica and their son. I'd like to see more of them.
Right.
I need to see
absolutely.
more of Jake and his husband and their
Yes.
daughter. Yeah, why haven't
Where
we
are
seen
they?
I
them?
haven't seen them yet.
Yeah, they haven't shown. I mean, here they have their granddaughter. I mean, Belle's granddaughter now. I mean, you think about it, you're like, hey, look, how is she doing? Oh, well, we went to breakfast the other day or brunch or something. But
Yeah, he's not even been mentioned.
It's like they have a new happy, beautiful little family. It's like, come on.
Of course, the
Yeah.
last two episodes have taken place on the same day,
oh, that is true.
so
yeah,
there's that. But
that is
still,
true. I think they're probably gonna bring him because, like, even Jessica, she wasn't, here until this episode.
Yeah.
So I think they will probably see them later on in the series, in the season. You know, even Dr. Nolan, I mean, we didn't see him much, but, you know, we'll be seeing him some more. That's what he was even saying, like, hey, you know, we're coming. So again, if it happened within the same day, you know, it's feasible that, hey, you know, I was off that day, or, you know, I was doing something else in another part of the hospital. And I think as time progresses, we'll probably see more characters come in because
Yeah.
it's covering more time frame.
I just don't want to bring new ones in. Unless they're patients, obviously, because
Yeah.
we don't need episodes like this all season
We
long.
don't
Please
need
don't kill off all of
more.
our favorite characters.
We don't need more of the doctors being patients. No, we don't.
The first 3 episodes have been our doctors as patients. Do you realize that's been the trend set so far this season?
Oh
right?
my gosh,
Wow.
I just realized that. Yeah, no more. Let's move on.
Ouch. Yeah.
Bring back,
we need a break. We need a breather.
If you
Give us
kill
some
off
Bill
anyone else, people are gonna riot.
Oh no. Oh,
All right.
man.
So we've talked about the episode. We've gone in depth. Some of us have gotten emotional, not pointing any fingers. And because I can't. And we've talked about what we want to come up. So I think we're pretty much done unless anyone else has anything else they want to say. The answer is no. Right?
Or we're just all
Nope.
overcome with emotion. That could be it also.
That's a cue to end the episode.
I'm all talked out. Let's just call it a night.
All right, so we'd really like to know what you thought about this episode, because I know that this episode is gonna impact the resident fandom in several different ways for several different reasons, and we'd really like to hear from you of what you think about the episode, how you walked away from it feeling, what in the episode really hit you really hard. Not because we want to cry or not because we want to make you cry, but we genuinely want to connect with you on that. I know that this is an emotional episode for a lot of different reasons. So let us know what you think. You can find us on our Facebook group, The Residents Chastain Family Fan Club. We also have a podcast page on Facebook, which is Fandom Family Chats. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok under FB Family Fan Clubs, or some variation of that. Just search for Facebook Family Fan Clubs and we'll be pulled up. And our email is familyfanclub2021@gmail.com. I am screwing that up every single episode now. So if you want to give us some feedback on what we're doing, what you want to see, if you want to see us doing something different, reach out to us there. We like the feedback. We need the feedback. And remember to subscribe and to share this podcast. The more people we get to participate in this podcast, to watch this podcast, to be partners with us in listening to this podcast, the more content we can bring you that is right up in line with what you want to see, like more interviews, more cast and crew stuff. And eventually our goal is to have merchandise or have giveaways with some swag stuff that's podcast related or our group related. So make sure you do that, share with your friends, give us your feedback, and we will see you on Wednesday with another Grey's Anatomy podcast. And that's all we got. See you in a couple days. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.